My name is Martin McAllister. I am from Crossmidlane in South Armagh. I'm a professional musician and I keep some horses as well. My wife and I. We're on the South Armagh-Monaghan border, literally on the border. The water you see behind me is the border. I haven't moved a mile out from where I was born. Extreme left there, where that house is, a road runs down there for about half a mile, then you hit the border. All the way around, this whole view here, right round to my extreme right, is Northern Ireland, or the north of Ireland. All land on this side of the lake is in the Republic. So this part's not leaving the EU. Negotiations seem to be hung up on the very issue of the border here. And the border here is a much more complex problem because it's also tied in politically, historically, to the state of Northern Ireland, as unionists would refer to it as. And the problem with that is we have actually two borders here. If this goes ahead, we will have an EU border here, and we will also have a physical border where it will be the dividing line between two supposedly separate states. Now, after customs union was formed and we had no border here at all, after the treaty was signed, it meant that traffic, people, goods could flow freely over. Like, the border here is about 350 miles of continuous border, and there was no problem anymore. Customs posts were all taken down, dismantled. We had no checkpoints anymore. Now, if there's a hard Brexit, it will almost be certain that the government in the Republic will have to impose an EU border there. I don't think, if you read between the lines what the British government are saying, and more so what they're not saying, it seems to me like they do not want, or will they attempt to impose a hard border. Subsequently, it's going to be the EU who will be seen as the people who are imposing the hard border. It's a very difficult question. The troubles were, it was very difficult to live here. We had a lot of British Army here at all times. We had special forces who operated out of here. We also had the old RUC, which were in effect a colonial police force. I cannot, with my hand on my heart, say that the present day police force are any longer a colonial police force, but colonial police force, as the name would suggest, were obviously, they were very, very biased in how to handle things. Subsequently, nationalism didn't support them. There were very few members of the nationalist community in the old RUC, something like 3%. There was 96, 97% from a unionist background. So it ran into all kinds of difficulties, and unfortunately, when you lose respect for authority, be that good or bad authority, it doesn't matter. You're on a road you can't get off at that point, and that's what happened here. We're all glad it's finished, but the business isn't finished. We have now a situation here where you have a stalemate in Stormont, where unionism has lost. The balance of power has shifted to the equilibrium is about 50-50. There are smaller parties there who would hold the balance of power, but unionism has slipped. So the demographics have changed the whole political game here. And if the question posed on the ballot paper was something like, do you want to be part of United Ireland, or do you want to stay with the UK? People will vote with their heart and with their feet in that situation. Now, that itself is not necessarily an ideal solution to the problem, because we then take approximately 1 million people who want to be part of the union, and we flip the problem over. If a tricolour goes up in Stormont tomorrow morning, you're still going to be dealing with approximately 1 million people who do not want to be part of that country. Now, having said that, that's an ancient fear they have in them. There are lots of people who are from a Protestant or Presbyterian background, living, working in the Republic of Ireland. They are part of the country. They play the games. They play Gaelic football and that. They're completely part of our system down there. They're in the judiciary. They're in the guards, and there's no problem at all. But when you look at that situation, it's fresh in their minds. We're just out of the troubles, and you have people who are not easily led down that road. Now, their own leadership have failed them, I believe, miserably by not leading them in a direction whereby that they could perhaps see some merit at some stage becoming part of a united Ireland. This is why unionism do not want a special deal for Northern Ireland. Special deal for Northern Ireland divides them from the rest of the UK, and this talk about a border down there is sea. If tomorrow morning there was a vote to reunite the country, the 6 counties of the north of Ireland are immediately sucked in to the EU, the same way as East Germany was. There's a precedent set for that. That's how they're going to have to handle it, and that's how they will handle it. And nobody's mentioned another little offshot of land. That would be, if you look at Gibraltar. The Spanish have a huge say there. What's going to happen to Gibraltar? It's caused so many problems, and nobody had the answer. Do you know why? Nobody thought. Everybody in England, I believe, in the political circles, thought that the referendum would be lost. I don't have a crystal ball, right? But what I think will happen, I think ultimately the British will do a deal to suit themselves. I believe they will isolate here if it suits them. The other alternative, which I don't see happening, is that they'll completely walk out the door without any deal, because that is a big major problem for them, So how they handle that is anyone's guess. But if I were to put money on it, I'd say that they would let unionism, they'd cut it adrift tomorrow morning if it suited them, because you never hear this in public, but privately they don't want to be here. There's no strategic importance anymore to this part of Ireland to them. They don't need the ports anymore. There is no nuclear threat. All of that stuff has gone. Anything that happens here now, I would like it that it came about by osmosis, really slowly, that nobody's forced to do anything. I'm talking about the political settlement here in Ireland. I don't believe we should force unionists down that road. I don't think we can do that, because all we're doing is putting the boot on the other foot. I believe we must slow down. We must show them a way forward whereby they can live in peace and contentment here. Keep their culture. Nobody wants to oppress them or suppress that. That's a mistake, but it suits certain people and certain parties at the moment to, use that threat to whip up that type of fear in their minds. What I'm saying to you is there's a gross lack of statesmanship coming from within unionism. They are not keeping the interest of their own people at heart, because, like it or not, as I said to you before, the demographics are going to solve the problem.